Hello drone pilots. Are you considering your GVC but want to know a bit more information about it? This is the video for you. My name's Paul Tace and I have done my GVC now with a company called iRed, and what I'm going to do in this video is explain everything you're going to need, all the advantages and all the disadvantages, and everything's going to help you to make a decision on whether this is the right thing for you. So let's get started. Okay guys, so before I go any further, I would like to point out that I have not paid for my GVC. I've done a lot of videos with iRed. I actually paid for my A2CFC with them. I've done a review on that, and then after that I've got in contact with them. I've done a few videos with Colin, and then he's asked if I wanted to, basically in exchange for doing a review on the course, they would pay for me to do it. So that's something I obviously accept. I just wanted people to be aware of that. Having said that, I'm going to be as unbiased as possible. But also, I've got on really well with iRed. I think they are a great company, and I think it was a really good way to do the qualification.
Okay guys, so I'm Paul from the future. I've got a slightly short beard and I'm holding my light because it's going to take me too long to set up all my lights to make a few adjustments. But basically what I've done is I've sent the video off to Colin to make sure everything is factual and correct. He's not amended anything about iRed, so there's no dirty dealings going on there. But there's a few things that I'm going to have to highlight throughout the video that I've made a mistake on. It's important to make sure we get everything right. Perhaps it's a little bit more important that I learn how to cover up my mistakes a bit better. But let's continue.
Okay, now we've got that out of the way, what is the GVC? The GVC is a qualification that will allow you to apply for a predefined risk assessment with the CAA to fly in the specific category. Okay, so that seems like a lot to take in, but basically you'll do your GVC and then you go to the CAA, you show them your GVC, and you also show them a flight log of at least 2 to 3 hours, I think it is, and then from there they will then give you a predefined risk assessment.
Okay guys, so when I actually went to apply for my PDRA1, I discovered that the initial register cost of the payment is £240-ish at the moment, and then if you want to renew it, it's going to be £120. And also for the first time when you register, you will not need a logbook, you'll just need your GVC, whereas going on and re-registering, that is when you will then need your logbook.
Now, a predefined risk assessment is a set of rules you are basically going to obey to fly in the specific category. Okay, so you do your GVC, you get your PDRA, and you can fly in the specific category. Now, the specific category will allow you to fly drones of up to 20 kilograms.
So at that point, I was meant to say maximum takeoff mass less than 25 kilograms, not 20 kilograms. Future Paul is now better educated.
With a 50-meter bubble around it, basically. So the advantage this will have over flying in the open category is you can legally fly over uninvolved people as long as you are doing so safely. So if you are flying a Mini 2 and it's below 250 grams without any extra payloads on, there is going to be no real benefit of where you can fly. Any drone over 250 grams, you will be restricted in the open category of having a horizontal distance from anything around you, meaning it cannot be overflown, whereas in the specific category, you can do that. So the GVC does this by taking the risk assessment of the safety around from the size or speed of the drone into the operator's knowledge and confidence in flying the drone. So it's a really in-depth course that will explain everything you need to know to fly your drone safely and legally as a business, and also recreationally if that's what you want to do. Because the specific category is separate from the open category, the C1, the C2 marks won't apply to it. You literally, any drone under 20 kilograms you can fly with a 50-meter bubble around it, which means you can fly over uninvolved people, meaning that even legacy drones will be able to be flown in this category. So it's a big benefit to people who have legacy drones, and it will be useful once the transitional period has run out.
My arms are starting to ache. I've got to hold the camera in closer. That's a bit too creepy. Slightly less creepy. Okay, so My arms are aching though. So something I wanted to mention, which I put in text, which I wish I had recorded myself, which would have interrupted the flow, but now I've got FuturePort anyway, I can tell you now. And that is that although I didn't need the GVC to fly in the specific category for my Mini 2, because I can go in the open category anywhere with it, I still benefited from taking the GVC for the simple reason that I've started doing some freelance work, and just knowing the laws and feeling confident and knowing how everything works, knowing how to get permissions, I found really beneficial. So although it doesn't give me any access to any extra areas, and technically I don't get any benefits from restrictions, I get the confidence that knowing that what I'm doing is legal, safe, and nothing's going to come back on me. So that's probably the strongest reason I would put out there for having a GVC if you do have a Mini 2.
Okay, so what do you need before you get started? Now, I would highly recommend having a PC or a laptop if you don't already have one, or something that is easy to edit documents in. As part of the course, you will have to adapt an operations manual, which can be like 100 pages long or so. So having something adequate to edit documents in is something that's going to be really useful. Secondly, when you take your test, you are going to either need some PC.
Macs are also supported for the exam. iPhones and iPads are not, unless you're taking them in the classroom. The reason for this is there is some sort of software you put onto your PC or your Mac to check that you're not cheating, which is not yet available on the iPad or iPhone. So iPhone can be used in the classroom, but not at home for the online course.
Now, if you go along the PC route, you're going to need to make sure your PC has one monitor, not two. Obviously, you can just take any any additional monitors off. You're going to need speakers, but not headphones. You are going to need a webcam and a microphone. So these are all things you're going to need to take your test at the end, which is a 40-question multiple choice test. Now, the last thing I want to point out is that you will have to take a practical test. So even though you're taking it online, you will still need to go somewhere to demonstrate that you can fly safely. And this is the practical flight test. So I went with iRed, and a lot of their sites are all down south. So this was really good for me. And they've actually got some really beautiful areas to fly. And there's some beautiful surrounding areas. So if you go down on a road trip, you can stop off at a few places as well and fly your drone for fun. Okay, so with that being said, let's now break down the course into different sections and I'll explain how I found it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is go through reading all the information. Now, I'm going to keep referring to iRed. I don't know if different companies do this differently online, but I like the way they do it. And what they do is they'll break down the course into lots of small sections. You'll go through an introduction and you'll have videos to watch and you'll have text to read. And then at the end of each of these, you get a mini test that just makes sure you understand everything that's been explained. You have to get 100% in this mini test to pass on to the next sort of point or the next area, but it's something that is very easy and it's something that's just been explained in the previous section, so it's not difficult at all. There's a lot of these. I think there's got to be hundreds of things to go through, so it's very in-depth. And what this will cover is everything from what is expected of you as a pilot. It explains all the different weather conditions, how to find out the weather conditions, all the resources and apps to make sure you can find the conditions. Also, where's restricted, how to fly in restricted areas, where to get permissions, why you need permissions. It also covers things like health and safety. Obviously covers if you want to get additional pilots, if you want other people to fly your drone, if you want to expand a business. It gives you a really strong sense of flying commercially and expanding as well. So it's got a lot covered. It's not too difficult. It's all pretty much common sense, but it just underlines the points you need to know. And again, really some really useful resources to make sure you're flying in safe and legal areas. You can then take your online test. Now, as I said before, this online test has some quite strict anti-cheat rules, but it can be done from home, and it's a 40-question multiple choice test. Now, all I did for this, I found it really quite simple. You just have to download the software they ask you to download and make sure you have all the equipment that they advise. There's a whole section on how to take the test as well, so that's something that's a really good guide, obviously. And then, so from there, I had my computer set up. You've got to make sure your desk is clear apart from the things you need on there, and you also need like a valid ID, a photo ID. So I use my driving license, but you can also use your passport. If you are under 18, you can still take the course. You can use any photo ID you have.
You can use your parents' or guardian's ID. But make sure you have their permission. Like, don't put on a moustache and pretend to be them or anything, especially if it's your mum.
Okay, now you do have a time limit on the test. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. I'll write it on the screen. It was certainly well over an hour, and you probably won't need this. I think I got my test done in about 20 minutes to half hour. I had a 100% pass rate. I think I fluked it a bit, but I don't think it will find it particularly challenging, and if you do go wrong, you can just keep retaking it until you get the required mark. Now, the really good thing about this test, having downloaded the anti-cheat software, is you can take it anytime you want. This is something that I found really valuable. Again, if you want to take this at midnight, you can take it at midnight. I say it's something you feel very free to do, and if you want to do this in your Lion onesie, you can do it in your Lion onesie. The only thing I will say is that when I did mine in my Lion onesie, I made sure I kept my hood down so they knew I didn't have headphones in, and they knew I wasn't cheating. So it kind of ruined the effect, but it's still fun to do it in a onesie. Let me know what onesie you do yours in. Okay, so just to summarise, when you're doing your test, you will need a clear desk, you will need to use speakers, not headphones, you will need a microphone and webcam, and download anti-cheat software. You can do it in fancy dress, as long as you don't obscure anything like your ears so they know you're not cheating.
You also need a clear view of your face during the test.
So once you've taken your test, you will instantly be told whether you have a pass score or a fail score. Now, you won't know straight away whether you've actually passed or not, though, because this will then need to be reviewed potentially. So somebody could look over to make sure you haven't been glancing off screen, looking around the room. You will fail if you have been caught obviously looking around the room and looking away from the screen. If anybody interrupts you or walks into the room whilst you're doing your test, if your phone goes off, you need to make sure you are sealed away from the rest of the world and nobody can interrupt you, which again is something that's really good for me as a father. I can do mine at midnight and hope that my daughter doesn't wake up. So that's just something to be aware of. So once you've completed that section, you'll then go on to complete an operations manual. Now for me, this was something I found difficult. A lot of people wouldn't find it difficult, but I've got a very short attention span. So going through a 100-word document...
It's 100 pages long, not 100 words long. Idiot.
Editing things and trying to get it right is something I found, let's say, challenging. It kind of took me aback. It's not something I was expecting, so it was a bit of a shock to me. But actually, it's not too difficult. I was provided with a template, and all you've got to do is edit the template to suit your drones. Now, for some reason, I decided to put my Mini 2 on there, which doesn't benefit from flying the specific category at all. But I also put my Mavic Air 2 on there. So if I want to fly my Mavic Air 2 now, I can fly that within the specific category, which is really useful and a really great thing to have. Now, it's not something to worry about. It's something you will pass because I kept sending mine off to Colin. He would go through it, make sure I find any mistakes, and then send it back to me. And then we'll go through that process a few times. And by the end of it, I had an operations manual that was good and ready to be submitted to the CAA for approval. Now, something to point out is your usual operations manual will need to be updated as you go along. Obviously, if you get more drones, they'll need to be added as the law changes. You would need to adapt the operations manual accordingly. Okay guys, so once you've done all the computer things, you put that to the side, you are ready to do your practical flight test. Now your practical flight test is going to test your ability as a pilot and how well you fly, but also that you can apply all the information you have learned from the previous part of the course into into real life. So you will be given a scenario, and a reason that they would want you to fly your drone, and you would have to make sure you have planned it well, made sure you've done all your pre-flight checks, make sure you've got an in-depth knowledge of the area, make sure you know what hazards are there, and also how you're going to fly. You need to make sure you're flying within the law, that you're not flying your drone too far away. Again, it's worth mentioning that even with a GVC, you're only allowed to fly 500 meters away from yourself.
That should be 500 meters or visual line of sight, whichever comes first.
So again, that's something to bear in mind. There will later come additional aspects of the GVC you can add on that will allow you to fly a bit further. The GVC has the same restriction in that the drone can only fly 500 meters away from the pilot, so nothing has changed there. You can get add-ons that will actually increase that distance in the future. And the other thing to point out is you will also need insurance to fly for your practical flight test. So, and this will need to be shown on the day. So once it's all been planned and your flight's planned and they're happy with that, so you'll arrive, you'll hand out all the forms that you'll have in your operations manual. You'll need to fill them out accurately, and you'll need to have planned the flight. Once you've shown you can do that adequately, you would have passed as a scenario part of your exam. From there, you will then be asked to obviously take off your drone and do a few maneuvers and fly around. Now, when I was doing this, I was asked to do a figure of 8, and you're asked to fly to different places, and Colin's going to be watching you, or if you go with IRED, and they're going to make sure that you are flying safely and sensibly. Now, there is room to make mistakes, but obviously if you do anything particularly dangerous, you will fail your practical flight test, but I believe they need to be quite severe for that to happen. Now, whilst I was flying, Colin also threw a few curveballs in there and asked me to do things I wasn't allowed to do. You just have to say, no, you're not going to do that, and explain the reasons why. Now, something I found particularly useful is once I was finished, Colin went through all the things with me and told me ways I could improve. So he's gone and he's noticed things I was doing wrong, he's brought them to my attention, and then I've corrected them.
One of the key things that I would say is that I've noticed that when you're taking off or coming into land, you're not flying your drone with its nose out. So the advantage of flying a drone with its nose out is that left is left, right is right, forward is forward, and back is back. Okay. And that means that if something goes wrong, such as losing satellite signal lock, okay, for the navigation satellites, your drone will drift with the wind. You need to be able to correct that really quickly, okay, to stop it crashing into something. So having the orientation of your drone correct, so that forward is forward, back is back, left is left, and right is right, means that you're straight on it. Otherwise, the danger is you'll wrong stick it, as we call it, push it into an obstruction, and you'll end up with a pile of drone bits on the floor.
Oh, that's not good.
And a MOR report to fill out.
Oh, no, that's even worse. Yeah. Nice. Okay, thanks for that, Colin. That's really great. So I actually found that really beneficial. I've never had someone before sort of watching over me, looking for my mistakes and offering me advice to improve it. So it's obviously something that's majorly beneficial. Also, something worth mentioning is that I did my course with another 2 people, which at first I was a bit apprehensive about. I was a bit worried about meeting new people, but actually they were really lovely. It was really interesting meeting people with going different directions with drones. One was an engineer who wanted to just start a new business from scratch, and another one was doing film, and he wanted to push forward and get more from his drone. So it was really nice to meet like-minded people, and it was a really fun day, actually. I enjoyed myself quite a bit.
So just to clarify, first of all, you'll take your online exam. You will then do your operations manual, and then after that you will do your practical flight test. And the reason for doing the manual before doing the flight test is that you will be assessed in your practical flight test to make sure you are using the procedures you have put down in your operations manual. I hope there's not another future Paul that's going to have to come out to correct this, but I'm pretty sure that's fine. Yeah, there's no future Paul. Very good. Let's continue.
Okay guys, so to summarise, all in all, I had a really good experience doing my GVC. It took me way longer than I was hoping for, and that was mainly due to lockdown. So because of lockdown, I couldn't do my practical flight test, and then when lockdown finished, I then had loads of freelance work come up, so I didn't really have time to go off and do the practical test. So I was pushing it back, but it doesn't matter, you get as long as you need to do it, so that's obviously a really good thing. I think at the beginning of the test it says they recommend you do it within 3 months, but that is not a requirement. I think one person left it over a year before finally getting around to do his practical flight test. Again, it's not something I recommend because you don't want to forget all the information you've taken in, but again, it is doable. There's something else to point out is something I forgot to mention is you do actually also get a student manual sent to you, which will outline all the laws. Basically everything that you've learned from the course is going to be nicely, succinctly written out in a student manual, which again is something really easy and nice to go back and refer to. Okay guys, so I'm really happy I've got my GVC. I feel that after the transitional period run out for the Mavic Air 2, it's something that I'm going to be using to fly my Mavic Air 2 in a less restricted way. So I've got to have some benefits for it. I say a lot of people watching this will have minis, so again, it's not something that will greatly benefit you unless you want to start a business. Now, even if you want to start a business with your mini, and if you've got the money, it's something that would be useful because it will underlie how to safely do so. And also, if you want to start getting other people to fly the drone, it's something that will help from that aspect. Okay guys, now this has been the longest video coming. This has taken hours and hours of my life. I've taken days going through all of the comprehensive questions. I've done the student manual, the operations manual, and then obviously doing the flight test, the test, and getting everything planned. If you have found this video useful, hitting that like button will be very much appreciated and will really help boost the channel. And again, if you're going to subscribe, that would be an even bigger help still. If you do have any questions, I'm going to start pushing my website. What I have made is a website with a forum. If you go onto there and you ask a question on the forum, I will get back to you. And it also helps other people answer the question as well. And if anybody else has the same question as you, they can find it there. So I highly recommend going through to the website. It's going to be a community website which is going to cover, hopefully in the time, everything you need to know about